Okay, so we will start the meeting. And it is, what time are we at? We're at 1:35. So welcome everybody. Just a reminder, this is considered a public meeting. So if when you're talking, please introduce yourself. I am Peter Mason. I'm the director of the ARPA initiative. And as you talk, make sure you introduce yourself. And there is no public comment. So if somebody is in listening, they can listen and they can send us an email to us, and if they have any questions, and we will get back to them. So we are recording this. So let us start with the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to see the minutes from the last meeting? Yes, no? Okay, got Barry said to move. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we will move on. I think they'll start off with update for the committees. And I think that's the next on the agenda, right, Keith? I don't have that
I
agenda.
believe so.
Okay, so for the residential committee, we have gone to a monthly meeting, and the meeting was supposed to be last week, but something came up, so that meeting has been postponed until the second week of July. Keith with the day committee.
All right, this is Keith Lavalette, DDS. We met on June 12th. The committee received an update from Trevor Rogers on the CELN Commission. The National CELN Committee did a review of Connecticut employment services to achieve the goal of increased competitive employment. They talked about the strengths, the areas of improvements, and recommendations. DDS is organizing work groups to address the findings and recommendations. Some examples are they addressed the financial incentive recommendations. They talked about significant training and outreach, developing marketing materials, and forming a transportation work group. DDS will be surveying providers regarding transportation. And DDS is developing its final report with a review of a final set of recommendations. They'll bring it to the stakeholder groups, and will basically include the ARPA stakeholders to make sure efforts are well coordinated and reflect both groups' area of focus. And Trevor will be sharing the final recommendations at the next ARPA Day Committee. Then we moved on to Deloitte, and we talked about the transformation phase 1. At the time, there was 6 approval letters. There are now 12. So that's moving along quite well. And then we talked about the training that has started, began last week, and then it's 2 more sessions are at the end of June. And then we talked about the acceptance letters that went out. Then we moved on to the communication, and Lauren Gray gave an update on marketing newsletters, website updates, and on the 7 supports. And I think she's doing the same thing today, so I'll leave it at that. And that's all for the day committee.
Okay, anybody have any questions for the day committee? If not, Greg, do you want to give an update on the individual and family committee engagement?
Yeah. Yes, this is Greg McMahon from DDS. The family and individual committee met on the 5th, and we had some communication updates from Lauren. we're able to show a final product of one of the one-page fact sheets to the committee so they could see the fruits of their labor. Those are now on the STEP webpage, I understand, to be viewed by anybody. But we went through that with updates on the videos that are coming up, and we spent the good portion of our meeting getting updates on all the AT initiatives from Patricia Cimbala, including going over the grant programs, the upcoming conference, the NOOs, and all the other efforts Patricia's participating in. Our next steps were discussing, summarizing some of the outreach initiatives that have been done by the department and recommended by our committee to kind of see where we are, and then talk about what other outreach our committee thinks would be helpful for individuals and families. So that's kind of our upcoming efforts will be in that area. And that's the update from our committee. Any questions or any additions, Shannon?
This is Shannon Jacobino, DDS ombudsperson. Nope, I think you got it all. Thank you.
So I'll give an update in terms of the engagement committee. A lot of the stuff to talk about in terms of the updates were given, so I'm not going to go through that. Of note, what we're hearing on this committee, since there's a lot of individuals from DDS, obviously, in the committee, is they're starting to get a lot of feedback, positive feedback around the messaging regarding STEP. People are now feeling more and more educated and more knowledgeable on what the STEP initiative is. We had they had worked with the case management, and they're working through the feedback in terms of the rollout of the STEP. For the most part, that's also been very positive. We are still getting some stragglers out there that don't think our message is as effective. And at one of the meetings with the case management supervisors, they had one of the supervisors walk through an exercise of connecting an individual on their caseload with one of the service components of the STEP initiative. So it was really hands-on stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that they've been working on. So they've been doing a great job with that. Anybody have any questions? Okay. So we'll turn this over to Deloitte for updates from them.
Great, thank you, Peter. My name is Julia Oak from Deloitte. A lot of our updates were kind of touched on in the committee overviews, but I'll give a little bit more color to the trainings and some about the implementation. So as Peter, Keith, and Greg mentioned, we've had the first set of STEP trainings on the 14th of June. We had one session for providers, one session for staff, and we have 2 more sessions for each group coming up next week. So far, they've been really successful. We've been doing evaluations at the end of each training and have been getting really good feedback from folks in terms of feeling like they're more informed and understand STEP. In terms of attendance for the provider session last week, we had 62 attendees, and I believe around 70 folks registered. So that was really great, sort of people registering and showing up. And then the staff session, total registrants were 163. There was some Teams issues joining, so we've resolved that for the upcoming sessions. So I think attendance for that was around 90, I think, 80 or 90. So that's sort of from last week. And then looking ahead to the provider sessions, as of late last week, we have 81 providers registered for session 2 and 51 providers registered for session 3. So we're continuing to monitor registration, and we'll send out additional sort of reminders and updates as needed. And then in terms of the staff registration, I know DDS is managing that, so don't have those numbers available. So that's the training update. Any questions there before I speak a little bit to implementation? All right. So the other piece that's in progress is we have been working with DDS on working on some of the implementation planning for STEP. So there's a STEP plan that was developed that was shared with, I believe, was shared with this committee and is posted online. So we're working with DDS leadership to sort of assign owners and build out some timelines so that there's a more built out plan for the actual implementation. And we'll be meeting with DDS leadership later this afternoon to continue that discussion. So it's very much in progress, but is sort of moving forward as we're wrapping up with the trainings. And those are the major updates from our end. So probably pause there.
Anybody else have any? This is Peter Mason. Anybody else have any questions? Great. Lauren, are you on to give us an update on the communication? Oh, hold on. When? Yes.
Hi, I'm Win Everts from New York, Connecticut. Just a question for Julia. Is the training that is being rolled out at this point in time one that's covering multiple subjects along the way, or is the training the same or similar session as to the first session to the last?
Yes, this is Julia Oak from Deloitte. Great question. So they're all different themes and all the sessions are recorded, and these slides and recordings will be posted on Provider Gateway for providers and on DDS intranet for staff. So the first provider session was about sort of strategic planning and sort of what are the types of things to be thinking about. Session 2 will be focused on day and employment transitions, and session 3 will be focused on residential. And that's really a little bit more process oriented of what are the templates, what do you put in, you know, that type of thing. And then for staff, the first session was a little bit more sort of what's the longer term kind of coming next for STEP. Session 2 will be focused for reviewers. So the review teams from DDS that have been reviewing submitted plans, it will be really a training focused on that process. And then the third staff session will be sort of speaking a little bit to supporting provider creativity as more plans are coming in and getting implemented. So thanks for clarifying.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks. Barry, this is Peter Mason. Barry, do you have a question?
So, it's Barry Simon O'Kill, not a question, a comment, just, or actually, I guess, question and comment. Are the amount of providers signing up for the consultations where you want them or expected? And then based on that, I don't know if testimonials are helpful, but I can tell you that my staff did the training and then had a consultation and came out of that in a much better place than they were going into it. So from that standpoint, it went really well and kind of gave them a framework to be thinking about as they're contemplating the transformation plan, for us. So just didn't know, I guess, if everything's going as planned, great. Two is, testimonials may be a way to encourage people to join or to, schedule them.
Yep, this is Julia Oak from Deloitte. That's really awesome to hear. I'm glad both the TA and the training was helpful. We can definitely think about testimonials. I know we haven't had as much folks signing up for technical assistance in the past month or so. We're not sure if that's because folks may have more questions once they attend the trainings, but attendance has been a lot lower than we would hoped. So we've been putting our heads together behind the scenes of how we can boost that, but definitely would love to have testimonials and something we can for sure think about to encourage other providers to attend.
Yeah, this is Peter Mason. That's great feedback. Thanks, Barry. Definitely we'll look into that. I know we had a number of people who went through it while we're doing the first phase. It's kind of tapered off, but we kind of thought people were waiting for the second phase to start. Well, now the second phase has started, so hopefully, we have been talking about how do we get people to take advantage of Deloitte's expertise while we have them, and it's the time to do it. So anything we can do. So we have a weekly meeting with Deloitte. So we'll bring back that comment and see what we can do. So that's really good. So thanks. Anybody else have any questions on that? If not, we'll turn it over to Lauren.
Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Gray from DDS. Just wanted to share a communications update as soon as I get my screen sharing to work properly. Here we go. Okay. So I put this link in the chat, but if you go on the website, the DDS website in the provider portal, the provider gateway, you can look, and I'll show this to you in the provider gateway under STEP and provider documents. It's actually the June newsletter supplement, and you can see the links to register for the trainings. We will also be adding we'll add a new section that says trainings, and we'll put the recording and the presentation slides here under the informational sessions. But for an overall update, I hope you've had a chance to visit ct.gov/step. It is our short URL. It's very easy to remember, ct.gov/step, and it has what STEP is overall. And newly added last week is a link to each of the 7 core supports. So for example, if you click on self-direction, there's a little description as to what it is. And we just added these fact sheets last week. So for each of the 7 supports, they each have their own fact sheet now with information about what is self-direction, how is it typically staffed, what are some of the benefits, what are challenges, and then how you can learn more. And this really links to the DDS website about self-direction, some forums, videos, and other resources. But each of the supports have their own page with their own fact sheet link now. We'll have the Spanish versions up later today. So we'll have them in English and in Spanish. So I hope these are a good resource. And going further down on the STEP page, we also have the recently sent out June newsletter and past newsletters and the overall STEP informational fact sheet that says what is STEP, what are the 7 core supports, how does STEP impact me, how can I get involved, and then what areas to learn more about STEP on the website. This is a really good fact sheet for people who still need help explaining STEP or what are the impacts of STEP. And again, this is all available on our website. This is also available in Spanish here. And then this goes down into the May forums. If you weren't able to attend the May forums, or if people have questions about any of the supports, we actually put up the videos and the presentation slides on each of the presentations about assistive technology, remote support, self-direction, employment, and the residential options. And these are really good resources for anybody who wants to learn more. You don't have to watch the entire video if you want, but it goes into kind of an overview with some success stories and what each of these supports can do. So I hope that's really helpful. And then we have the previous forums, but again, this is the STEP website on our website, and it's also linked on the second option here from the DDS homepage from STEP. Any questions about the STEP page? Okay, so a couple more quick updates. We've been regularly updating our social media, and I hope this has been helpful. We've been retweeting a few things and adding DDS updates to Facebook and Twitter. I think this morning we shared a post from the Special Olympics. We have some fundraiser and some other information on our Facebook and Twitter pages. We've also, as I just reviewed, been updating the provider gateway into different educational resources, FAQs, templates, all kinds of information that's on here, in addition to the newsletters. don't think I need to go over inside GDS. And just, I don't know if this is super relevant, but we do have the AT conference on Thursday in Hartford. So we have a really good agenda and we have some breakout sessions, but we hope to, have some good follow-ups from this meeting. And we have AT and me, which I definitely encourage everybody to learn more about. It's a really good opportunity to actually use, some of this technology and receive a backpack full of laptops, a cell phone, hotspots, and all kinds of stuff. So this is a really good opportunity to see all of this technology in action. I don't know if I'll see some of you there, but I will be there handing out one-pages, informational sheets on ARPA and STEP and assistive technology and remote support. So, really excited about this conference this Thursday as well. That's really my update. Besides, we'll have, I know we've heard a lot about the videos that are coming up, and we really hope to have those released in August. Late July, early August is our best timeline right now for the upcoming informational videos about each of the supports, and we'll definitely keep the committee updated as those become available too. I know that was a lot, so I'm happy to take questions or provide any resources.
This is Peter Mason. So just a little highlight. So the conference, which had openings for, I think, 250 people, is all sold out. So that's fantastic. We still may have some opportunities for people, for individuals and their families, but for the most part, it's pretty filled out. That was our goal, is to get as much information out for people. In terms of the AT and me, just so that people understand that, what that is it's a program where we have our self-advocates who will work with individuals to show them what assistive technology is, and we'll actually give them a bag full of assistive technology items. These include a phone, a smartphone. It includes a hotspot to go with that, so they'd be able to use that wherever they are. It has, I believe, up 14 months of 14 months of usage that they don't have to pay for. And there's a tablet in there as well that also will be able to hook up to the hotspot. And there's other items in there that people can use. And so we're looking to get the word out to individuals. So the self-advocates will then provide the training. And once they go through the training, they'll then be given the bag. So the more we can get people to get that word out and get more people to use it, the more I think that will be a success for us. Anybody have any questions in terms of communications?
I just had one more thing, Peter. I'm sorry, I skipped this tab. One more, and this is Lauren Gray from DDS. One more important thing we're really trying to make people aware of is our DDS newsletter sign up. So if you're on our website and you click subscribe for e-updates, or if you're on our STEP page at the very bottom, it says subscribe to our email updates. We're really trying to encourage this so that people can receive monthly email updates from us. All they have to do is just put in their information and sign up. And we are sending out, like I said, monthly email updates for not only STEP updates, but other, DDS updates as well.
And this is Peter Mason again, and we'll eventually be moving from the hard copy of the newsletter onto an electronic one. And so that's why we're trying to get everybody get their email addresses so that we can then send them out that way. Anybody have any questions? Wow, quiet group. Whew. Okay, so I believe it's my turn in terms of an update. Let me just make sure. So I want to share, we've been talking, we have 12 providers who have been approved. So let me share you. This is it. Okay, let me know if you can see that. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right, so here are the 12 agencies. I didn't put out their names. At this point, we're just using them as a number. Unbelievable as it may, and we always strive for consistency among our regions. We have 4 approved from the north, 4 from the south, and 4 from the west. So that's a pretty good spread. As you'll see, we have a total of 84 individuals for the day program and a total of 32 for our residential. The total reserve for the incentives is $6.7 million. And so I'll go back on that. So when providers put in a plan, we tell them this is what your maximum incentive will be, depending on individuals who follow through with the plan, depending on how long it takes them to transition, depending on how long it takes to backfill. There's a whole number of variables to it. So when we put this number, this is what we're reserving in terms of the incentives. So we're reserving 6.7 million. And if I go down here, just so that people can see, our target from the start was we wanted to have at least 200 people move from a congregate day setting to a non-congregate setting. With the 84 people after 12 agencies, we're at about 42% of that number. So we're really excited about where we're at to start off with. You'll see for residential with the 32, that comes up to 32%. And for a total commitment of about 24 million, this represents to just about 27.5%. So if these numbers hold and we have more agencies, our goal is to hit the target, obviously, but if we hit the target using the same percentage, we may have some additional money that we can help place additional people. So this is a great start for us. And just to give you an idea of what we're agencies, what they're transitioned to. So we're looking at 54 people going into an IS from a congregate setting to ISE is 54 people. To GSE is 3. CE customized employment is 7. To transition services is 10, and individualized BOC is 10. So that comes up with the 84. The residential, you'll see it all says IHS, which is where all that the technical piece is. So, but we know that in terms of the plans, people are going into clustered supports, they're going into supportive housing, they're going to CCH. I think one of the individuals is in CCH, and I don't know if I put that down correctly, so I have to go back and revise this. But somebody was telling me that earlier today, so I have to go back and look at the plan. So what we have to do is providers get a approval letter, and an approval letter will tell you how much money is reserved, how many people are moving, and then they also have the budget, and the budget goes through in terms of the supports that they're going to get. But it doesn't go into the detail into whether it's a clustered support or supportive housing. And so that's the thing that we're have to go through the plans to make sure that we're getting that just right. So but for right now, it's the 32 people. So that's kind of a look at these 12 agencies and where we're at. And want to know if anybody has any questions regarding that. Wow. Everybody's all excited. Great, thanks. Okay. Then I'll stop sharing that. Just a thought. Hold on, there's a comment in there from Cheryl. Just a thought, if we go completely electronic with the newsletter, we may miss a percentage of the DDS individuals and families who have limited access. So my question, will there be an option to continue? The problem with the paper part is that it's very expensive to mail. And so I think the department needs to figure out how to do that. Now, whether they make copies and then case managers can give it to them. But I know that in terms of mailing them out, that's something that's going to be it's not going to be sustainable. So we're trying to find a way to make that sustainable. Let's see. Just a couple more updates in terms of where we're at. So I did that. Talked about that. Right now we're working on a training for our DDS licensing, Q&A, and abuse and neglect liaisons. Our concern is that we want to make sure that everybody understands what we're doing, and that in agencies that are doing some more creative or transitional activities, we don't want them to get caught up to the middle of whether the plan says that there's supposed to be somebody there, a staff supposed to be there 24 hours, and yet the approved transition plan says that somebody will be able to be on their own using assistive technology, and somehow those two didn't connect. And then the provider gets hit with an abuse and neglect claim. So we're trying to make sure that we're trying to cover some of those bases with individuals. Obviously, the plans need to get updated. So we would need to make sure that the providers are working with the teams to make sure that all that stuff gets updated. But in the meantime, if there is a gap, we want to make sure that our staff there know what questions to ask, who to ask those questions to, so we can kind of avoid some of those concerns coming out. And then the provider having to deal with an investigation and stuff. So that's one of the things we're working on. Let's see, our rewarding work is up and running. So we've got people working through that, and I haven't heard any negatives yet. So I got to find out what's happening with that. Our non-project based supportive housing grant, we had 3 agencies that were awarded it, who are now starting to work through how that will work, and the department's working with them. And other than that, that is all the stuff we have. We've given the updates and stuff. So I don't know if anybody has anything else that they would like to discuss. Michael, yes.
Hi, Michael Beloff, parent and agency board member. In looking at the STEP initiatives and what we're looking to do here, we're helping with giving options to several constituents throughout DDS. Anyone who's receiving day services, which I believe is all eligible participants over the age of 22, and individuals who already have housing supports. One thing that's kind of not in the mix that affects families like me and many other families is how STEP will be freeing up funds that may allow additional folks who don't currently have residential to be able to access it, especially with some of the lower cost options that are now being available and be developing as part of this process. And I think a lot of the families are kind of, if there's some disengagement from families, it's that it seems like right now all the focus is on families, on individuals who have residential supports, as to what might be most appropriate for them moving forward. And that's wonderful because everyone should be in a less restricted environment. There's less information or knowledge for families that are looking for residential supports and don't have them. And I'm wondering if there's a thought as to either how that might be communicated or if that's part of what this is going to be as funds are freed up post transition for the residential folks.
No, that's a great question. And I think this is Peter Mason. I think that everything here up until these 12 plans has been theoretical. We've been saying, oh yeah, we're going to have individuals go from here, a congregate setting to a less congregate setting, which is great for them. And then that should loosen up some annualized dollars to help other people. It's all been theoretical, but as we're starting to see these plans, we're now starting to see what that translates into. And where a concern before was a lot of the houses were going to be closed, and so that there would be no backfill opportunities. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing that providers are looking at trying to backfill their openings that they have. And so as we start working through this, we're as I'm going to look at the website, the spreadsheet, and try to keep expanding it to say, okay, here's what we had. This is what their current annualization was. This is what their target is. If they reach their target, then there'd be X amount of dollars that would be freed up. That freed up can then be used for what the priority is. And the priority, depending on the plan may be for some individuals, some providers may be working on converting a house or a CRS into individuals who have more significant medical or behavioral issues. That money then would be used for that to help fill those slots with that group. If it's more, we just want to backfill, then it looks at, what's the availability on the emergency list, what's the availability for the waiting list. So there's going to be money that's going to be around. Now we have to see how that all shakes out. So now we know that we've seen in a number of these plans, there have been annualized dollars that if things go through will be available. And then how does that then help individuals and families like yours in terms of where that money goes and how do we then prioritize that to lower the need for those who are looking for supports and stuff.
And at Michael Belloff again, I think that's great. I think families would prefer, I know as a family member, I would prefer knowing that dollars will not be leaving the residential system. I think the big fear when the state is moving folks out and saving money is that if there was, I'm going to make up, if there was X dollars for residential that the state is currently spending, that if we're now saving Y, that there's still X dollars for residential, we're just using it differently. And I don't know that families have heard that.
Right. And I'll speak from Peter Mason and not any other way. We have to be careful because you got to learn from history. If we're so successful and we tell people all over the world what we're doing, somebody's going to look at this as a budget saver. And so we have to be careful that what we're doing is reusing those dollars for the priorities of the department, whatever that would be. And not, we need to tout our horn, but we have to be careful the way we do it, that we're not showing this as a cost savings initiative, because God forbid that's the last thing that I'm looking for. I'm looking at how do we then take those dollars and give it to who need them. So it's a delicate message that needs to get out there, because right now there's a surplus, but that can go real quick. And if this is out there, this could be looked at as in a different light than we would hope it would be. So I just use that caution there because I've seen that happen. Kathleen?
Thanks, Peter. I apologize in advance for my confusion, because I might be mixing apples with oranges here, but we are still being told that no transformation plans have been approved, and that all of the transformation incentives will be allocated after transformation plans have been formally approved. So I'm a little surprised to hear that 4 providers in each region have been approved and are receiving incentives, because that's just different from what our understanding of the
So
situation.
then I have to apologize too, because I put I just saw the ARC of Eastern Connecticut's approval letter. So you should be getting that shortly. But I put that in because I was trying to keep the count. So you should be getting yours shortly. Everybody else has got theirs within the last 2 weeks. So those are all been going out. If you had started the transition of anybody after you submitted the plan, that then would be you would be able to get reimbursed for those incentives.
So essentially we started transforming too soon.
No. As long as you put the plan in and then people started transitioning after you put the plan in, that's
Okay,
anything
okay.
that from then on you would be able to get incentives for.
Okay, thanks. I get it. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so my apologies. I was trying to be efficient and I forgot about that, so. Anybody else have any questions? As you're all such a quiet group, there's not much I don't want to keep talking. So if there's nothing else, then, oh, hold on, Wynn has a question.
Hi, whenever it's the Arc of Connecticut. Have any plans been submitted to transform a provider to one that wants to support medically complex and behaviorally complex people?
We have seen that they want to work with individuals, but we haven't seen a whole house converted, but we have seen that they are interested in working with individuals as a backfill in terms of that. But we haven't seen a whole house that I know. I don't think there is one a whole house, Keith. Am I right or wrong on that? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. It's not very specific in the plans. That there's some houses that the whole house is being moved and they're backfilling. We just don't know yet who they're backfilling yet.
They've mentioned medical and behavioral, but they haven't said that the whole house is converting. So we haven't seen that completely yet.
Thank you.
Barry?
So, yeah, thanks for the question, Wynn. Barry Simon O'Kill. Peter, I know we have that project that's been kind of waiting for DDS to help move along. So there is a project that's in play. And then part of our plan is that. So there are, and obviously our affiliation with the 2 agencies is, moving that along.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that in the works, but
yeah, having as part of the plan will help move it along a little bit quicker, Barry. So that's good.
okay. Well, I think, and I don't want to conflate things. I know that the project is the one that got started 2 years ago. That's just waiting for DDS to move it along. That's the one on the grounds. So the second one the second one is going to be a new program that's part of a plan.
Oh, what's I'm not. I'm trying to remember the one 2 years ago. So so maybe you can send me something so I can make sure
Sure.
I know what we're talking about.
Okay.
All right, great. Okay, everybody. There's nothing else. Everybody have a great day and give you back 45 minutes. All right, thank you, everybody.